I got you. There you go. That one was actually rude. My bad.
It's Pat's show. I'm just here for the ride.
Wow.
Am I interrupting your whole deal? Do you want to
I want to
carry
show
on?
some cat videos, and here you are talking politics and this
Okay.
annoying stuff.
Worst of the week this week, and I know we have profiled this person before. My former classmate when I was in college.
I forget that.
Yeah, the former COVID communications czar,
Yeah.
Ashish Jha, who, with the new disgusting guidelines that have just been released by the CDC, which is basically get back to work and COVID is just the flu now.
Right. If your fever symptoms have subsided after a day, you should go to work. That's the CDC advice.
Yeah. Which it's never been about that. I mean, at the very beginning, they would do people like if you had fever, but we've known for 4 years now that people are
Right.
contagious before they show
Right.
symptoms. They're contagious when they feel better. They're contagious definitely almost always for the first 10
At
days
least 50% of transmission is from asymptomatic people. So
without a fever.
putting the fever out front and forward on the fact that you're not transmitting COVID somehow is absurd. It's just
Follow the science, Pat.
not true at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So a few high profile epidemiologists, doctors, COVID specialists immediately started posting about how disgraceful this is. I think Judy Stone wrote something in, oh gosh, does she write for Fortune? But, lots of high profile people came out to talk about that this isn't following the science and more people are going to get infected, sick, die. Hospitals are going to be overrun. Like, this is not good. And this is Ashish Jha's post to try to calm it down. The Infectious Disease Doctors of America agree. Lie. The change in the CDC guidance on COVID isolation makes sense. Lie too. Now you can choose to. Oh, he didn't even proofread his own stupid tweet. Now you can choose to listen to some random anonymous dude on Twitter who disagrees, or you can listen to the infectious disease experts. I'm with the experts, folks. And so he's quote tweeting here the IDSA. Thinking of prevention is something we do for all respiratory viruses, provides a simpler way for everyone to stay healthy. IDSA supports CDC Gov's guidance on preventing respiratory virus spread. That's the
Right.
expert.
And the whole premise is that, look, he's quoting this organization that, oh, well, these are
the experts.
These are the experts. This group right here. I'm going to listen to them, not some random dude on the internet. But
tell me about the IDSA.
Yeah, the IDSA is
run by Carlos Del Rio. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, you're a reader. I'm a thinker.
This is why I'll be getting the hook next week. So this was pointed out by Don't Inhale Virus down below, and Dr. Wow, lots of shots. Dr. Lucky Tran, a former White House COVID chief, Ashish Jha, says ignore experts critical of the weakened CDC guidelines and trust the ISDA. But Delta's former medical advisor, who wrote a letter that led to the CDC weakening their original guidelines, was also president of the ISDA. So clearly it is all just a capitalist endeavor to get everybody back to work. That's the whole deal. Carlos Del Rio helped with the very first bit that initially lowered the isolation period from 10 days down to 5.
Right. And I think people remember, but just to remind you, the 5-day isolation came out of Delta Airlines' request to lower it to 5 days. It wasn't based on any science at all at the time.
It's just the CEO of Delta.
We knew about transmission rates then. We knew about asymptomatic spread. We knew all that stuff was, the scientists knew all of it then.
Yep.
And so the Delta guy goes and becomes the president of this group that is now advising everybody on what's good and bad for COVID transmission.
This is how, I mean, and we're going to see it in Israel. I mean, we see it in every single segment because it's all just media, corporate media, sort of laundering what they want to disseminate by creating a new board, a new task force,
Right.
and they just are putting out the exact same thing, but now it comes with the imprimatur of, oh, it's the IDSA or whatever that is. That
From IDSA to Jha to then it becomes the New York Times quoting Jha and then quoting separately the IDSA. And
right,
although it's all one source, it's all
right,
one source for all this. And meanwhile, you got all the scientists actually informed on this stuff, screaming the entire time, this is bullshit. This is not how it should work. But our government capture by corporations is just as clear as all day. And if leftists would actually wake the fuck up, everyone on the left would agree with that. I mean, most people would. But because it's such a vacuum, we're giving this guy a pass on COVID policies that are killing and disabling millions of people.
yeah.
Here's Jha at the time of the Delta transmission when they changed from 10 days to 5 days.
Before today's CDC announcement, and again, this is how it's like this circular sort of like pinballing to each other, right? Before today's CDC announcement, I wrote out why 10-day isolation is too long. It harms public health to isolate people unnecessarily. Evidence suggests 5-day isolation and negative test is ideal. Never shows that evidence because it doesn't exist, unless you're talking about for, getting the economy back up and running, which, by the way, it's not even good for that because so many pilots are out sick. And then remember all those like planes that almost started crashing because air traffic controllers were either out sick or still suffering from brain fog. 5-day isolation and 5-day masking, reasonable too. CDC's decision is the right one. He definitely earns his pay. There is no one who has licked a boot harder than Ashish Jha. Truly.
And at that time, everybody screamed, this is not right. This is not science. 10 was conservative. 10 days is conservative. I mean, they look at the average transmission, how often they're trying to get a medium of like, look, a lot of people are safe at 10 days, right? That's kind of the thing. Oh, a lot of people are safe. But at a 5-day isolation, a lot of people are not safe. Most people are still transmitting COVID
Yep.
at a high rate.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the 5 days. Let's go look at what he actually thinks about COVID before they got into
His
the political
bank account.
czar of COVID
yeah.
and corporate capture.
Science. What would ideal COVID isolation guidance be once rapid antigen tests are cheap and ubiquitous?
That never happened.
No. Isolate. And by the way, they're now, I think on the 8th is when the government will stop giving out free tests. Yeah. And I tried to do it again. The last time that came out was like 6 months ago or something. Our household of 4 people, we got our 4 tests. Yeah. And they went, so now it's 6 months later, they wouldn't give it again. And they're expensive, if you can find them. They're like,
yeah. So,
yeah.
I mean, look, if you're following what he says here, okay, you get COVID, you isolate for 5 days and then test daily. 4 days later, most people are not clear of COVID.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
But
I mean,
if it takes 4 days and finally you're on your 4th day and you're clear of COVID, sorry, your family's out of tests. You're out of tests.
Just see if you have a fever now. Do you have a thermometer?
Yeah, and so what does that mean going forward? That means next time you get sort of sick, you're like, I don't have the test. So
yeah, I don't really have a fever. Put a washcloth on your head and keep on moving.
It's not COVID. I know it's not COVID. That's what people are convinced of.
It's everybody's saying it's and also like the rapid antigen tests now are not even current. Most of them have expired. They tell you on that website, like, don't worry if it says expired, they're fine. They're not, I don't think, keeping up with the JN1. Now they're telling you, as we all know, like the back of your throat, your cheek, the inner cheek, then your nose. Some people are dipping it in their stool, which is not what those tests were created for. I mean, like it just, we are truly out here on our own.
Yeah. I mean, look, you should swab your throat and nose, or I don't know. Somebody put in the comments what you should do.
Yeah.
I believe you should still do both of those. I don't think you want to start swabbing your feces, probably, but whatever. Regardless of that, we know that probably the throat and nose are going to pick it up, right? And as they should. But that's not, these are old tests. They're not in the test guidelines to do that stuff. So you have to be informed to even know how to use the test better.
Yep.
Than, and you have to research and find that stuff.
Yeah.
And if you go online and try to research this stuff, you're going to hit, before you find the solution, you're going to hit all this
CDC
anti-vax
guidelines.
stuff. You're going to hit layers of like bogus information,
including the CDC. Right. I mean, that's what's going to happen. So now it's just, it's the Jimmy Dore Brigade and the Brownstone Institute and the CDC and Trump and Biden are all on the same.
Sorry.
I'm kind of laugh if she pees on you right now. Would you tell us or would you just sit there?
I would just sit here with a sad face. Like, what was that movie with Steve Martin when he peed at the table and it's like, I need to use the bathroom?
Not dirty old bastard. No, not dirty old bastards.
Rotten Scoundrels.
Dirty rotten scoundrels.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. I'll give you that face.
All right. So this is, how long are you, this is recent. How long are you contagious with COVID? Most people are infectious for 10 days. 80% of people test positive for 5 days after symptom onset. Only 30% of people who test positive have a fever. Presence of symptoms is an unreliable indicator of infectiousness. Individuals can be infectious before the onset of symptoms. Asymptomatic cases represent around, well, see now, I thought it was higher than that, but they keep changing that, around 20 to 40% of all infections. So this new guide.
I can't do, sorry, I cut you off again. Without the, normally I want to put the clapping on to make it clear. I'm going to cut you off. Sorry about that. So what I was saying, I don't even know what I was. Okay, quick math. I don't know.
Let's just move on.
If 80% of the people are contagious after 5 days, you're sending one in how many people into work? So of all the people that are going into work with their fever gone after 1 day,
right,
you're probably only preventing one person out of 10 from spreading COVID.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about your math, but you're not preventing enough. And because nobody is,
sorry,
just keep talking. Yeah, any number, 99%.
76.
And nobody's wearing masks. So not that, they're not 100% foolproof. And if you don't have the right mask and if it's not fit tested and all that kind of stuff, but like, I just assume that everybody has COVID. Right. So I always wear a mask indoors, but nobody's wearing masks anymore.
Right. But the guidelines to go back to work don't even say, and wear a mask for 10 days or something. Like, can you not put in that? Like, just,
well, you don't want that scarlet letter.
To get to work, if you absolutely have to go to work sick and we don't know, 10 days of masking or something, that's going to cover some of this a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going to help some people.
Yeah, no, it's really disgusting. And so this was from a couple weeks ago. The Washington Post started talking about the fact that the CDC was going to change its guidelines. And in that article, the plan to further loosen isolation guidance when the science around infectiousness has not changed is likely to prompt strong negative reaction from vulnerable groups. We're all vulnerable groups. If you could get COVID, you're a vulnerable group, including people older than 65, those with weak immune systems, and long COVID patients. So the CDC they know that the science hasn't changed. It's just the desperation from, the capitalist brigade to get everybody back to work, get the kids back to school, get the parents back to work, get everybody back to working in the office, all that kind of stuff. Nothing changed with the science.
Nothing changed. And they blocked. So part of changing their guidelines, the policy always includes public comment before they change the policies. So when they say they're not talking about blocking people's voices on Twitter or something. Right. They're talking about scientific community being able to speak up about this stuff. But they did also block on Twitter. I mean, on Twitter, they took valid, legitimate scientists and hid their replies. And if you go to the CDC's tweets or Mandy Cohen, who's the director of the CDC, and you hit show hidden replies, you will see, there's some offensive ones they hid. If you want to have a reason to, fuck you, Mandy Cohen. Yeah, I get that. But, oh, hey, Mandy, look at this study. Why are we doing this? Something like that. And it's a link to a science site.
Yep.
Those are hidden.
They're hidden. So that's the public dialogue. Look at me putting the banner up. I need a raise. All right.
The CEO of the company? Because I'll give you a raise. Make me CEO.
So right away, the Wall Street Journal. It's official. We can pretty much treat COVID like the flu now. Wahoo! And here's the chief nerd showing. So I can't see what the year was when Facebook removed Trump posts that he compared it to the flu, but I'm assuming it was back in
2019 2020, 19.
Yeah.
Maybe, but yeah.
So that was removed, as was like anything about the lab leak speculation or that the vaccine wasn't going to prevent spread or anything like that, all removed. And now it's official.
Back then we didn't know. And so the assumption is, well, now we know, so you can treat it like the flu. But no, now we actually know you cannot get anywhere near treating it like the flu.
And by the way,
it's such gaslighting. It's crazy.
Disgusting. But do you remember Bob Woodward had interviewed Trump in February of 2020? And in February of 2020, Trump tells Woodward, it's not the flu, it's airborne, it's going to spread like crazy. This is a terrifying moment. When Bob Woodward finally published his book, like 6 months and I don't know how many deaths and infections later,
he got a lot of
everybody was in an out. Well, but people were in outrage that Trump had known in February and didn't say anything to the public. But so did Bob Woodward and held on to that so he could have some big, sensational
gotcha moment in the book.
Yeah. 6 months of everybody knowing. And I mean, they knew it was airborne. We've all seen that clip at the World Health Organization where the head in late February, beginning of March says it's airborne, gets a swift whisper in his ear, and then says, no, not airborne. They knew. They've known.
They knew
the whole time.
And I mean, just imagine that though. This is where leftists are like garbage. Like it's like holding on to something to get the other guys politically when you could save lives right now. Bob Woodward could have saved so many people's lives by coming out forward with that information right away. That'd be like, hey, Lila and I, our show, we have the way to cure COVID if you join our Patreon, if we actually did. And we're just like, oh, join our Patreon and we'll have an extra show where we show you how to fake COVID,
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it's so absurd. And they get a pass on it. This is where, if Trump's president, none of this stuff happens. I hate to say it because the press turns on him. The press reports this stuff. As far as COVID goes, I'm telling you, we will be better under Trump. Now, I'm not going to say any other stuff. But the press will pay attention to COVID again, and that's going to save a lot of lives. That right there, throwing some
Do you think they'll go back to that, or do you think it's done? I mean, they'll start talking about hospitals. They'll do a different angle around it, right?
Yeah,
waiting in hospitals. Yeah,
there'll be a new take, like the stress on the health system because he's ignoring COVID.
Right,
that'll be a thing, and
yeah. Well, and
they'll find some way to not. Because obviously they still are not going to want us all to just stay home because there's going to be no social program for it. But you'll get the left wing again. You'll get the squad again on our side. They will all suddenly wake up to COVID.
Yeah. And healthcare and vaccinations. I did see one of his threats was any public school that requires vaccinations will lose federal funding. It's really interesting to me because he's not stupid politically. I think he has an idea of how to wriggle his way around certain things. That to me feels like he's handing it to Biden because he could say, Trump could say that Trump did better on COVID than Biden. Fewer deaths.
He's going to go there a little bit, I think, honestly.
Yeah.
He is.
Anyway, but he keeps playing his part of being the greater evil.
Oh, he's missing opportunity, and this is where he's not smart. That's where I'm.
That's what I don't get. Yeah,
he's not smart because he's missing that opportunity. He's missing the opportunity on Palestine. Not that he's,
I mean,
he would never come out and be pro-Palestine, but he's missing. He's putting out, like he said yesterday. Well, we'll get to Palestine.
Yeah.
We'll cover that.
Yeah.
But he's lobbying votes back to Biden for a lot of.
It's
people.
crazy to me.
A lot of fence sitters are going to be like, "Well, I was really pro-Palestine, but now I am actually convinced by what Trump said that he's going to be worse on Palestine."
Right.
Yeah.
Genocide plus. All right, let's get through this quickly. So right away, people start getting notices from human resources at the office that there's no more sick pay for COVID because of the CDC's changed guidelines, right? So that's like, it's all the dominoes start falling. It was interesting. It was leaked when that first happened that the White House was going to continue its precautions that anyone who's tested positive for COVID or has had any symptoms or been in close contact should stay home within 10 days prior to the public tour of the White House or seeing the president. And now they have lifted those, which is, I think, if anybody still thought that possibly Biden was going to be the nominee, this is the surefire decision that they are trying to get rid of him no matter what. Get that man another case of COVID.
And you know that clip we showed of him like struggling to breathe, but remember he did have a rare breakthrough re-emergence of COVID during his early on in COVID. He was one of the rare breakthrough cases where he wasn't healed enough from his COVID.
Right.
So he probably
and Jill's gotten it like 4 times, right?
Yeah. So I mean, there's probably some long COVID effects, and maybe
brain damage,
maybe their
dementia,
calculus on this. Maybe their calculus on this is that he had COVID this week, or something. So they're like, well, okay, he's got like, you do get immunity generally for a few months if you've had COVID. Now,
not anymore. Not with this new one.
Well,
don't mean to correct you, but no, even with, a little bit, but not the way it used to be.
It's not the same, but
I
have to think in his case, if he had COVID recently and he's got the doctors, he's in a better place. And so, they might be making the political calculation that like, okay, he's going to be on the road for 3-4 months, unlikely to get COVID in that time because he's recently got it.
Okay. I think that the reason that they lifted these precautions for him is because they don't give a shit if he dies. Yeah. So like, what's your angle here? I don't even understand.
They also want him to die, but I think
that's it. Stop correcting me.
He probably thinks, and they probably are telling him,
convinced him
that he's got protection for a few months, and they're going to be extra cautious. But because he changed his policy now, you kind of got to do this, Joe. Yeah,
maybe. I just don't think that he needs that much convincing of anything. I think, give him a bowl of ice cream and send him on take his teeth out and let him go.
Spun him around in his wheelchair a couple times at home. And they're like,
exactly.
You want to do this? Sign this.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, great. Does that mean I get ice cream?
Okay. So we're all like with actual numbers. Another 1,652 people died this past week of COVID. Hospitalization.
Can we block Jesco, Mr.? Is there a block feature?
I love Mr. Jessica. Hospitalizations are still up. I mean, it's all such a fantasy, and you can pretend all you want that we're post-COVID, but like everybody is sick. Every single podcast I listen to or show I watch, people's voice, like people are coughing, they're hacking, everybody's sick all the time now. That's not normal. Like it did not used to be that we were all just sick all the time. Anyway.
Yeah. And that sickness isn't always going to show a positive COVID test because this is the consequence of your immune system getting beaten up by permanent COVID damage or temporarily permanent, but like maybe 6 months to a year of damage in a lot of people's cases who get COVID. So they're going to get other diseases, and they're not going to necessarily show a COVID positive test associated with them.
Exactly. Sorry, exactly. Sorry, I'm trying to go back and read because I wasn't actually all that interested in what you were just saying, Pat.
I wasn't listening to you go back and talk about these. I don't what something about
This is
comments.
going to be our big fight episode. We're gonna
God
bring
damn
some
it,
drama
Jane,
to
you
this.
ignorant slut. That's for the
We
old people.
just, so everybody knows, rich people are still trying to clean the air and do their best to go back to normal. And this is what we should all have. Luxury homeowners are known to splurge on sleek kitchens, custom decor, and art, but they are increasingly turning their attention and budgets to something you can't see: clean air. Purify, filter the air. Just like, I remember when like a few rich people I knew years and years ago, like got water filters for everything in their whole house, not just like not just out of the tap, but even their showers and whatever. And that was like, oh my God, I still think that's pretty fancy, but like, you see, if we're going to poison people's water the way we're doing rampantly, everyone should have filtered water for every part of their, however water, if it's touching your skin or you're ingesting it, and clean air. And that's, that and masks and testing and all those things. If we ever want these variants to stop.
Oh,
is that,
yeah.
Did she just be on you?
No, no, I chased her off so she wouldn't. But look, I'm installing like the new bougie thing, like the water is bidets. All these rich people are getting bidets, but their bidet water is probably better Purified for you than most people's drinking water in America.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Taylor Swift is the latest singer to raise concern. Fans expressed concern as Taylor Swift coughs through her Singapore show. It was actually, the video is not like interesting enough to watch here because it's really dark and everything, but it was crazy to watch it and see she's singing and then she just like like into the audience, just like coughs, doesn't cover her mouth, nothing, sings, coughs. Anyway, we're going down.
Yeah, she is truly the super spreader with all the events she's having. So now, that's like conspiracy, but maybe she's going out. Maybe she's a part of this. Maybe there's a Fauci connection. Somebody can Google and find to her because she's spreading this shit everywhere.
It's money, and then to think that like, it's like the thing with Adele, that if you only protect yourself with an airborne virus, it's so gross anyway to think of yourself that way, but like you're in this huge arena and you're only protecting yourself. Of course, that's not how it works.
Yeah, you're so aware that you're going to actually be one of the rare groups protecting you and your staff, but you're so aware and you have such a big platform and you have all these people, these kids, these young teenagers mostly coming to visit and see you, and you're not going to tell them, hey, you guys should probably mask at least, or that's not enough, but like just do that. That's a big move.
Not pretend, show people that it's still here. Like just
Swifties, you could have an audience of 40,000 Swifties at every event masked, and that would be fucking powerful.
Yeah.
Because they're still going to go. They're still going to all go. Those tickets are still going to all sell out. It's not going to affect her bottom line at all.
Yeah. If anybody in this administration or in government really wanted to change things, which of course they don't, partner up with her on that. That would have been great. We did just want to call out and thank a friend of the show, Kim Crawley, who wrote an article, A Guide to COVID-Aware Internet Shows That Aren't All About COVID. And I think I just said,
where are we
I
at?
think I said Crawley.
I didn't see us on the list. What the hell are you talking about?
I'm sorry, because I don't even know if it's Crawley or Crowley as I'm saying it, and I know she's in our audience, but a nice little write-up about us and several other shows. So please do check out her. Oh, that's why I got it. Okay, Crow Girls, Sky Cave.
Sorry.
Kim's
Crawley. Awesome.
Sorry. Yeah.
I don't know Kim personally, but I've known her on Twitter and we've been in Twitter chats for a long time, and she's great. So
yeah,
please
she's
follow
great.
her.
And also,
and you can tell by that article that she knows what she's talking about.
Yeah.
She's a hero.
One of our favorites. So thank you for doing that. Did you want to show the 217 guy?
Yeah. So, this is sort of our one good thing to end this thing on. So obviously this is not a case study that proves a lot, but there's a guy who faked vaccine cards, and to do it, he had to go in and get COVID shots every time. And he's selling these cards to people that don't want to get the vaccine because they're scared of the vaccine. And he got 217 of them, and they ended up studying this guy, and he's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't mean, you can't extrapolate that to mean
it's
nobody's
one guy,
going to die
but
from the,
yeah.
Because obviously people do have vaccine injuries. That's a very real thing.
Right.
But on the scale that people are worried about, it doesn't match up to the math, which I'm not going to fake here. But it's clear this dude got 217 vaccines and then suckered in all these people to buy the vaccines cards. Like they're all
he is
scared
neon
of the
green
vaccine.
now, though. Did you see a picture of him?
No.
I'm joking.
Anyway, he's fine. So I look, we're all going to end
enough
up getting
science
like
for
50
you.
vaccines.
That's the only proof you need.
50
that's
vaccines.
True. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. All right. I think we did it with the COVID.